Most Americans know the name Custer, but far fewer know the man who helped destroy him. Crazy Horse was one of the most feared Lakota war leaders of the 19th century, a man who signed no treaties, rejected reservation life, and helped lead the resistance that shattered the U.S. Army at Little Bighorn. To the United States, he was a problem that would not go away. To his people, he became a symbol of courage, defiance, and freedom. Crazy Horse was born around 1840 to 1842 in or near the Black Hills of present-day South Dakota, among the Oglala Lakota. As a boy, he was known as Curly Hair, and later he took the name Crazy Horse after an act of bravery. He grew up in a world shaped by buffalo, kinship, warrior tradition, and spiritual visions. According to Lakota tradition recorded by historians, he experienced a vision that told him to fight without vanity, not to wear flashy war honors, not to take trophies, and to enter battle with humility. That unusual discipline became part of what made him legendary. By the 1860s, the U.S. government was pushing harder into native lands across the plains, building roads, forts, and military routes deeper into contested territory. Crazy Horse rose during this period as a battlefield leader during Red Cloud's War, when Lakota resistance fought against American expansion along the Bozeman Trail. He was associated with the native forces that inflicted one of the U.S. Army's worst defeats before Little Bighorn, the Fetterman Fight in 1866, helping prove that Plains resistance could stop American military expansion, at least for a time. The 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie seemed, briefly, like a native victory. The United States agreed to abandon forts along the Bozeman Trail and recognized Lakota control over the Black Hills. But Crazy Horse never believed treaties meant safety. He refused reservation life and continued living in the buffalo country beyond direct U.S. control. That decision mattered because when the government later broke its promises, men like Crazy Horse were already prepared to resist instead of submit. Everything changed in 1874 when George Armstrong Custer entered the Black Hills on a U.S. expedition and gold was discovered. Almost immediately, miners flooded into territory protected by treaty. The government tried to buy the Black Hills, failed, and then issued an ultimatum: all Lakota had to report to reservations by January 31, 1876, or be labeled hostile. For many bands, especially those still hunting and moving across the plains, that was impossible. For leaders like Crazy Horse, it was unacceptable. What followed was not an accidental clash. It was war built on broken promises, land hunger, and forced submission. In June 1876, the U.S. military launched a coordinated campaign to force Lakota and Cheyenne resistance onto reservations. One of the key Army commanders was General George Crook. But on June 17, before Crook could unite with the rest of the Army, Crazy Horse and a force of more than 1,000 warriors struck him at the Battle of the Rosebud. The battle stopped Crook's advance and changed the rhythm of the entire campaign. Whether described as a draw or a tactical native success, its effect was clear. Crook was delayed, and Custer was left without the support he badly needed. Just 8 days later came the battle that made Crazy Horse famous in American memory. On June 25, 1876, Custer found a massive native encampment along the Little Bighorn River and attacked without waiting for reinforcements. He split his troops, underestimated the size of the village, and ran into a fast, coordinated response from Lakota and Cheyenne warriors. Crazy Horse was one of the key leaders in the counterattack that overwhelmed Custer's battalion. By the end of the fight, 265 members of the 7th Cavalry, including Custer, were dead in one of the greatest defeats the U.S. Army ever suffered in its wars against native peoples. But Little Bighorn did not bring freedom. It brought revenge. After the battle, the native encampment scattered, and the United States intensified its military campaign. Crazy Horse refused both reservation life and escape into Canada.
He kept moving, kept resisting, and kept trying to preserve independence in a world closing around him. Yet the Army's pressure was relentless, and by the winter of 1877, hunger, cold, and constant pursuit had begun to crush even the strongest holdouts. In January 1877, Crazy Horse fought Colonel Nelson Miles at Wolf Mountain and was defeated. By spring, surrender had become unavoidable. On May 6th or 7th, 1877, Crazy Horse led roughly 1,100 followers into Fort Robinson and the Red Cloud Agency to surrender. It is often described as the moment America finally broke him, but that misses the truth. He was not defeated by a lack of courage. He was worn down by the destruction of native mobility, food supply, and freedom itself. The battlefield had expanded beyond combat. It had become a war against survival.
Crazy Horse survived open war, but he did not survive captivity. After his surrender, tensions grew between military officers, agency officials, and Lakota leaders. Fearing his influence, U.S. authorities moved to arrest him. During a struggle at Fort Robinson on September 5, 1877, soldiers trying to confine him mortally wounded him with a bayonet or stabbing thrust. He died that night. The warrior who had helped stop Crook and destroy Custer did not fall charging into battle. He died in custody, in a struggle tied to imprisonment and mistrust. Crazy Horse still matters because his story destroys the simple myth of the American frontier. He was not a footnote in Custer's story. Custer was a footnote in his. Crazy Horse was one of the greatest resistance leaders in the history of North America, a man who refused to surrender his people's dignity, land, and way of life until the very end. He remains powerful because he reminds us that conquest was never clean, never uncontested, and never inevitable. If America remembers men like Crazy Horse only as warriors, it misses the larger truth. He was a defender of a world under attack. He stood at the center of one of the most important struggles in U.S. history, the fight over land, freedom, and who gets to tell the story of America. And even now, more than a century later, that fight over memory is not over.